Today on Locked On Rockies, the veteran backstop in review. Elías Díaz provided some pretty great moments for the Rockies in 2023. The advanced metrics and some stuff you're concerned about, but for right now, Elías Díaz seems to be like the right guy to be the catcher for the Rockies.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 26th day of October in the year 2023. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot. That's what we do around here. Is talk Rockies baseball on your favorite streaming services. We're also on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. We're going to be reading YouTube comments in tomorrow's show and diving into some reaction we've gotten from you Rockies fans out there. We'll be talking about Elías Díaz on today's episode as we go back to Rockies in review here for our Thursday podcast. But again, just wanted to thank all of you for making us your first listen of the day and for finding us on your favorite streaming service. Hey, if you want to help the show, your subscription to the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel is the best way to help the show grow. Really do appreciate that and appreciate you all tuning in. I am your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, bringing you all this wonderful Rockies talk. Been following this team my entire life and been bringing you your Rockies podcast for 3 years now. And I wanted to continue our Rockies in review series with someone that I think it's an interesting big picture overall for Elías Díaz, especially when you look at let's take a look, for example, on the advanced baseball savant metrics and things like that. Elías Díaz is overall a below average player and closer on the poor side when it comes to batting average or all the advanced batting metrics. But on the flip side, he is on the great side when it comes to caught stealing and other defensive metrics. He's above average in some, not so great at framing. So those kind of paint some pictures there, and you can dive deeper into those numbers and all of those and be concerned. But right now, I think Elías Díaz is the exact type of guy the Rockies need behind the dish as they're waiting for the next big the big crop of catchers coming up. And we talked about this in a podcast not too long ago. So I'm not going to dive in too much if he's the right guy for the job overall. I just think he's earned this spot, and he's earned the confidence and the trust of the Rockies and Rockies fans. I mean, at least for me. Again, is he the best catcher in the league? No. Is he the best offensive threat in the league? No. But this year, in 2023, he contributed and was the Rockies all-star and provided one of the best moments for the Rockies in all of 2023. So when I think about this season and do I get caught up in the fact that it's an anomaly and the regression is probably going to happen? It's certainly a factor you have to keep in mind, but this is a good trajectory. If Elías Díaz can replicate and do what he did last year, even close to it, maybe not so much maybe he cools off a little bit and doesn't play at the all-star level in the first half. But if he's someone that can continue to contribute on offense and be someone that cuts runners down on stealing in an aggressive base stealing game now, Elías Díaz fits the bill. He's comfortable with most of the arms that remain in the Rockies organization. He helps the Rockies pitchers. I think that they're confident with him behind the dish. The error throw ball away and the framing issues are certainly a problem. But again, when we're thinking about Elías Díaz, it's not really much longer than 2024. So right now, he fits the bill of solid catcher play. He doesn't succeed in a lot of in all the areas, but he's a good defensive catcher for in some metrics, and as we saw in the field, especially for caught stealing in the arm strength. On top of the fact that he does provide timely and solid hitting for the Colorado Rockies. He's not someone that was able to get double-digit home runs. He's someone that finished the year with 72 RBI, and he was able to get 130 hits on the year, scoring 48 times himself, including hits that were coming up in the times where the Rockies weren't getting them. They weren't getting the clutch hits that they needed and in certain situations. But Elias Diaz did provide those opportunities and showed the fact that at times he can go on a tear. I mean, Elias Diaz can hit the heck out of a ball. Elias Diaz certainly has the ability to still's got pop in the bat, and is still someone that plays a pretty decent offense. Again, not flashy, and we're talking about him coming off of a career year where other years we've seen him with batting lines such as 246, 310, 464, 774 when you're going average OBP, slugging, and OPS, and an average of 228, 281, 368, 649. He's not going to knock your socks off with these numbers and some of these stats. But where the Rockies are at right now, I don't think they need to be too concerned with Elias Diaz and a regression, because you can work to pivot. You can you could go to the waiver wire option again. I think Elias Diaz has earned his spot and earned his right to play out the contract before setting up for the future of the Colorado Rockies, even though the trends are concerning. I mean, the regression is going. He regressed in the second half of the season. As we've kind of seen most often with Rockies all-stars, especially of late, we've seen a second half regression. The advanced metrics are not great, but I just don't think you need to really overcomplicate things with catcher and with Elias Diaz right now, because he's serviceable and does a solid enough job at the position before you're really setting up for the big changes that are ahead. And right now, the Rockies need people to be solid behind the dish as they continue to navigate and figure out the pitching situation. He is someone that I think it provides a good amount of confidence. He oozes confidence, which really adds, I think, to players and adds to that. I think he would be just a really great battery mate, and seems to be with his teammates because of the way of interactions we see from him, the energy he brings, and he played a lot last year. I mean, he played a lot and almost got 500 at bats last season. And let's see, I don't know how. Let me see if I can get the splits here in terms of how many games he was a DH here. But he played in 141 games last year, and that's massive. I mean, that is massive. He did get 526 plate appearances this year, easily the most of his career. He set career numbers in just about everything last year. So you got to give him a tip of the cap. And again, you can be hesitant and be critical overall, but the commitment isn't too great to Diaz. And what he contributed to the Rockies, albeit in a mostly losing effort, was above average baseball, as he did finish a little bit above. He finished positive in WAR and one above. 1.4 WAR here on Baseball Reference as he finishes the year. So, all in all, I'm fine with Elias Diaz. I'm really happy with how Elias Diaz played this year. I'm really encouraged by the performance of Elias Diaz. I mean, if he can take stuff that he's learned from this successful season, translate it into and have another season of double-digit home runs and batting average over 250, and if he could try to boost up and do a little bit more when it comes to slugging and OPS and OBP, I'm going to be jazzed. But I'm not overly concerned, because the Rockies don't need to worry too much about Elias Diaz's impact, or really, I guess the one big concern you can have when you're looking and evaluating and be down on Elias Diaz is the fact that the Rockies didn't trade him at the point where his value was the highest. especially if you really look into the numbers and you look into everything and you look at where the Rockies were going last year, it would make sense if you really go full on rebuild, full deep dive. Elias Diaz would have made sense to move at that point because he was having the best season of his career, a little bit of control, and he could have again added some more arms. But I'm glad that he's there because I think he is the right type of veteran guy to have for this team right now, especially when in regards to catcher-pitcher relationship. Pitchers are the pitchers that have been around the Rockies now for that have been with the Rockies for a couple of seasons now are familiar with Elias Diaz. That includes some of these young guys that have had opportunities to come, that have been up and down and up and down. Elias Diaz has been someone that has been able to work with a lot of pitchers within the organization, especially with the amount of arms we saw from the Rockies. And I think that adds value. I think that adds to his value. And let's not forget, he provided one of the best moments for the Rockies in 2023. Let's talk about that coming up in segment number 2. But before we do that, got to tell you about our friends at Ibotta. How does free Thanksgiving sound? This year, Ibotta is here to give you cash back and help make sure your Thanksgiving table is complete, because who wants turkey without the gravy? Big holidays mean big family get-togethers, but you don't have to spend all that money on the Thanksgiving spread without getting something in return. With Ibotta, you can get your turkey and all of your favorite sides for free. Starting November 1st, for the 4th year in a row, Ibotta is giving 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem everything you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. All you have to do is shop at your favorite retailers and upload your receipt. Yes, that's right. Just shop for all that stuff you already have to go shopping for and upload your receipt. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Download the Ibotta app, that's IBOTTA, right now and use code MLB to get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving dinner starting November 1st. So a couple days from now, but coming up here, you can do that starting November 1st on the Ibotta app. Just go to the App Store, Google Play Store, and download the free Ibotta app and use code MLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code MLB. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast, free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. You can find us on your favorite streaming services. You can find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where we sometimes read comments like we will be doing in tomorrow's episode of Locked On Rockies, in addition to our Reviewing the Rockies series continuing. And speaking of reviewing the Rockies, we're talking about Elias Diaz today. And I spent the first half, we looked at the numbers, and again, nothing's blowing your socks off, right? You're not overly impressed. And in fact, when you go deeper and you dive deeper into the numbers, it's not as pretty as it might appear on the surface or in certain big moments. However, Elias Diaz has something that that not every player has, and he's got the I just think there's an energy around him that you can see as a fan, and you can see in the dugout, and you can see the significance of Elias Diaz around his teammates. I think he just brings good teammate energy mixed in with and I think you need someone like him to carry you through a season of really tough times. Someone that can keep up the energy, keep upbeat, and someone that is going to that continues to, impress by saying, I'm going to go out there and put my all. I mean, the one thing you could say about everything, I mean, Elias Diaz went out there and impressed more often than not this year, with the fact that he was an all-star and had his career season. So that stuff, those type of small intangibles are really important. And I think that they matter a lot inside the clubhouse. There's a reason why you talk a lot about clubhouse guys and clubhouse this, clubhouse that. It matters. It's important. And I think Elias Diaz has demonstrated that during his time here. And I think he's really stepped into a leadership role with this team. At least from how it appears from me. Maybe I don't know. I'm not in the locker room. I don't know that, but from seeing it and then having that moment to in the All-Star game and seeing how much he cared about being selected to go to his first All-Star game, how much that moment meant to him, and then to be able to come up big in the All-Star game. It's just really cool. I mean, Elias Diaz just gets to go down in my mind as a cool Rockies player, critical or not, and critical of everything he provided in a season full of mostly despair and slog. Elias Diaz was the one was a shining was a spot that shone. A guy, a longtime vet of the league, having a career year that allowed him to be an all-star for the first time, and then he hits a go-ahead 2-run shot as a pinch hitter late in the game, reminiscent of moments where we've seen Elias Diaz come up big for the Rockies during the year. And I won't, and I'm so pumped that I got to see that. It'll be a random bit of trivia for forever. Who hit the go-ahead home run for the National League team in 2023, and people will forget it, but not us. I mean, that's not the diehard Rocky fans, and not for the people that really don't take it for granted when their player actually gets to represent the team in the All-Star game and then have a moment to do so. I mean, there's a good chance Elias Diaz isn't going to get in that game. But instead, when he gets in the game, he produces one of the biggest moments of the year. I mean, the NL, you all know the record and the AL's usual domination of the NL there in the All-Star game. And he went up against one of the best in the biz. Wasn't just a little line drive. Wasn't it just a little bloop? Go ahead, 2-run home run. It was awesome. So as I review Elias Diaz and we continue to look forward for the Rockies, I don't think changing much at the catcher position and moving away from Elias Diaz too hastily is the move. I think Elias Diaz, through this year and throughout most of his Rockies tenure, has shown you that he can play a serviceable catcher. I don't like how much he throws the ball away sometimes. I don't like, some of the issues that we've seen in terms of regression in the second half. But he is someone that I think the Rockies are going to be able to rely on. We don't need 10 errors throwing the ball all over the field. That's for sure. But he's still got a cannon for an arm. He's still able to catch people stealing. Let's see if I can get, let's see. Assist, double plays. I should have, let's see, stolen bases. No. Here we go. Caught stealing. 22 caught stealing this year. 23%. And it was higher at some point, and he was on a roll and on a tear for a bit. But for right now, Elias Diaz is going to fit the bill. And overall with the Rockies and where he ranks, I think when you're evaluating Elias Diaz, when you're looking at it overall, and I said this at the beginning of the year last year, before the season started, the offense has serious problems if Elias Diaz is your best offensive player. And for a bit, that's been the case. It didn't finish the season that way, but Elias Diaz did lead the team in batting average this year. And Elias Diaz was third on the team in hits. Elias Díaz was 4th on the team in home runs. Elias Díaz was 2nd on the team in RBI. Elias Díaz 5th on the team in walks. And Elias Díaz 5th on the team in strikeouts. If you're going further here down the line, if you're curious, OBP, he drops down out of the top 10 there. I believe that is 11 or 12th. He's there. Slugging, Elias Díaz dips a little bit further into the middle of the pack, and OPS, Elias Díaz hovers still around in the top 10 there. So in those metrics, it gets a little bit more matched up. And I mean, this ESPN stats, it moves things, and some people have very few at bats. So a little grain of salt there as we're going through there. But the bigger concern for me is I sit there and I say, wow, I'm really encouraged, and that's great from Elias Díaz. And I like to see that. And if he can get close to that next year, that's great. I'm more concerned that he continues to be someone that is so relied upon in this Rockies offense. But the big shift and the big change this year with at the trade deadline and with some of the lineups the Rockies were putting out there, they didn't have much of a choice. Next year, hopefully that's not the case, as long as we're seeing progression and we're not seeing a regression from a lot of the young guys from the Rockies. Because if Elias Díaz can be your middle of the pack and someone that's contributing, but doesn't necessarily need to be someone so heavily relied on to be a heavy the big offensive threat, then your lineup gets a little bit thicker, your lineup gets a little bit deeper, and it helps out in the bottom of the order a little bit more. Because in reality, Elias Díaz can't be really used as the DH next year. The Rockies can't be. I know he DH'd a little bit this year, only in 8 games. So only in 8 games, not a lot. But that's just not an option next year when you're trying to figure out the Bryant, Blackmon, Montero situation there with the DH. So Díaz has to be able to contribute on. I realistically, we got to see we got to see strong defense, especially from Elias Díaz. Again, like I said, better on the errors and better on the throws controlled. And we need to see close to last year offense to feel super confident in Elias Díaz. But we only got another. I don't think the Rockies are going to do more than I don't think the Rockies are going to overextend on Elias Díaz. He was the all-star. He earned it. He deserved it. He's a great Rockies player. He's someone that is a joy to watch. It's just this is a moment where the Rockies can't overcommit. Elias Díaz earned his all-star bid, earned his time in the spotlight last year, and has earned the right to be the Rockies starting catcher going into next season. But we don't need to overcommit when there's interesting catching options waiting for the Rockies coming up. All righty. I said we were going to do it tomorrow. Why don't we do it both days? Let's take a look at some YouTube comments here from the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel coming up in segment number 3. We'll also do it tomorrow, but we've been getting some more comments of late. So let's check out a couple of comments here before we wrap things up for the day. But and then we'll give some closing thoughts on Elias Díaz as well, coming up here in segment number 3 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies. And if you need to take care of yourself and you're looking to add some antibiotics to your daily routine, or just to have just in case, because you never quite know what might happen, Jase Medical and the Jase case has you covered. The Jase case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case, and you can add other medications based on your unique needs. So you can check out if you need to mix and match and go through things to match your needs. Jase case allows you to do that. And if you have questions at any time, you're able to communicate with your representative there from Jase Medical, who take care of you, the board certified physicians at any time. They'll take care of you and make sure that you are getting the right medications in your Jase case and setting yourself up for the best health possible, no matter the situation you might find yourself in. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. You can save by using the code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. $20 off by using the code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network and the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show and fire off your Rockies comments. We're going to get a couple before we dive into more on tomorrow's show. And let's just put a bow on our Elías Díaz conversation. All in all, there's reasons to be hesitant about Elías Díaz, but I'm not going to take away from his career year last year as something that was a fun and bright and that had bright moments in an otherwise dark year. Elías Díaz is a player that's easy to root for, and I think has shown influence on the Rockies, and I really like that. I like Elías Díaz. I like watching him. I think he plays a good catcher, and for right now, he fits the piece for the Rockies. Just don't overcommit, as they are known to do. Let's finish off with a couple of YouTube comments here. And this one is, let's see if we can go back to our catcher ones here. But I think we might have said this one before. But Luxay says, I don't think the Rockies need to get a new catcher this offseason. Drew Romo is in AAA. He will be up 100%. Have Diaz play this season and mentor him a little, and just have Diaz and Romo. Hunter Goodman can also play catcher. So there you go. Some interesting stuff there. And when it comes to our Rockies in review here, I think we read that one yesterday. So we'll go here to Gregory Thomas. Says the Rockies are somewhere where all of the World Series teams have been. They have 0 World Series victories. That's a good, I guess, way to think about it. There are other teams that have been around longer than the Rockies that have more painful droughts of World Series and teams that have come closer than the Rockies. But I don't want to dwell on that too much, because we can't look for, we can't avoid criticizing the team in the areas that they deserve criticism in. And that includes a lack of postseason and successful postseason appearances from this team. That's just me. But you know what? You are not wrong. And there are, again, teams with worse curses and worse records and worse streaks and worse droughts. But I'm just getting a little antsy. And I want to hear more of how the Rockies are going to get back there. Let's see here. Enrique Lopez says, will miss Charlie when he's gone. Always a fan favorite. Yep, that is true. It will be tough, but you know what? This year we get it like we were saying in our review, which that comment was posted on. We are really excited to get at least one more year of Charlie and to really be able to send him off and really kind of know what's going on and feel confident that he's going to go out swinging and go out on a high note, hopefully, at least in terms of personal production there. So I'm with you. I will miss Charlie very, very much. But we don't have to think about it too much at the moment because we get a whole other season with Charlie Blackmon. So we'll take that. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for tuning in today and for making us your first listen of the day. We really do appreciate that. You can find us on your favorite streaming service. You can find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. And we got so many great podcasts available to you on the Locked On Podcast Network. If you need a second listen, why not check out Locked On MLB, covering all sorts of World Series action for you, getting ready for that. And, of course, need more Colorado sports coverage? I know you need more Colorado sports coverage. Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Buffs, Locked On Nuggets, all available right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.